Are you holding on or letting go? In this video, I will share with you my interpretation of the energies that will be available for this full moon portal at 25 degrees of Scorpio with the total lunar eclipse. I'm doing this transmission in connection with my guides that suggested me to do this transmission as an exercise to clear different distortions because this moon has a lot to do with emptying to receive. So watch until the end if you want to receive all the benefits. I'm going to talk a little bit about metaphysics first, because usually when one is looking for information about a moon, there are two questions that usually arise. One is how does it influence me? And the second one is what to do. And the first clearing is more intellectual, because if we approach this in this way, we are already disempowering ourselves. So the first question, how this moon influences me? Planets don't influence us. I don't approach astrology as planets influencing us. Because if we are looking at planets as external forces that are influencing us, this is already a point of view that is going to make us blame something external for what is happening to us and also feel very small, like puppets, like characters in a game that someone else is playing. So that's the first distortion. This also applies to spiritual guides. Like, don't look at them as external forces to either blame or tell you what to do. Regarding planets, if we understand as in Hermetism that we are a microcosm and there is a macrocosmos that is a reflection of what's going on inside and vice versa, we are only seeing correlations. And correlations doesn't mean A causes B. It means that we are looking at planets as looking in the mirror and giving us information about ourselves. So when we go at a lake, and I'll talk more about lakes later with Scorpio. If we go at the lake and we look at the lake, seeing ourselves, and we see we have something in the face, we're not gonna blame the water for putting that on our face. We're just going to realize that, oh, it's showing me that I cried or something, or it's showing me that I have something to clear. That's it. And about what to do, once you receive this information, you are empowered to make a more informed decision, right? So this is how I approach astrology as an observer. Like, you look at the planets to understand better the energies that are moving inside, and then you can take decisions that are more aligned with what you want. So next, I invite you to not receive so much from the head, but more from the heart. Because in a way, words are like a vehicle to get the mind on board, but you're actually receiving this as a frequency, not as a verbal message. So I invite you to close your eyes. You can bring the hands to the heart and then breathe into the heart, and then bring all your attention and presence into the heart with the intention to receive that which serves you with gratitude and leave what doesn't with gratitude. Okay, we are ready to start. First, clearing distortions on the nature of cycles. This full moon in Scorpio is the culmination of the cycle that started on November 4th last year with the new moon in Scorpio. And Scorpio makes us talk about the cycles of life and death and its wild nature. So there is a distortion of being biased on preferring one end of the cycle or another. So in the beginning I mentioned holding on and letting go, which would be the sun will be in Taurus, which would be holding on, and the moon would be in Scorpio on opposite sides, which would be letting go, life and death. And there is a bias here already, which is a distortion. That which makes us hold on to life and try to escape death. And I'm not talking literally here, despite it can also be literal. Because there are some cultures that actually have celebrations when someone dies, representing the success of reaching the end of the journey and being reborn in another world. So here is very important to clear our fears of death and also our fears of life, because we can also hold on to that which is no longer alive and forget about living our lives. And in that regard, you can also train yourself to see it differently, not like someone who lives your life either because of physical death or because you're not close anymore, as not necessarily someone who's not there anymore, but someone who becomes more integrated, like a guardian, like someone whose job in your life is done, but that doesn't mean they simply disappear, but they are there in another way, because there's no separation, just transformation. And the same goes with death. It's not really that someone stops existing. They still exist, but transform in another form. And that also makes us realize about how precious life is, because it has an end. And that is Scorpio. It has an end, so it gives it value, which is Taurus. So one doesn't exist without the other. And that's what's so important to integrate. They are one. Both are sides of the same coins. They're just two sides of the same thing. It's what makes it sacred, not scary. And that can bring us back to respect and acceptance. So what started for you with the new moon in Scorpio last November? And realize, in a way, it's not something external that is dying, because like planets, this personal event is just pointing you to what's dying, a part of you that's dying, that's transforming inside of you, so you can be reborn. So notice the difference, how you are not the same person you were in November, and feel for the growth. You don't have to focus on what you're losing, you can focus on what you're gaining, because in every single loss, there is a gain. Realize, what is the gain? What is the gift this death is bringing you? And allow it to transform you like it came to do. Don't judge, don't blame. And when there is a death, there is a grief, and there are different stages of the grief. And maybe you feel anger, or you feel betrayed, or you feel sad, and accept that. But also realize the other side of the coin, because it's also there. Train yourself to see it. I remember how in the past, when something ended, it was very difficult and there was a lot of blame. But with this full moon, thanks to connecting with the higher frequencies in meditation, I can appreciate the other side of it. Can you see it? Because every being, everything is a light being, is consciousness, is source energy, every single thing, and its sole purpose is bringing you more consciousness, is helping you remember, it's helping you realize that you never left source, that we are always there, and that source is living every single thing we are living, that there's no God to blame, that there's no external force to be angry at, because it's all one. There's no battle between good and evil. It's just you fighting against yourself. So dare to be compassionate in the face of not getting what your ego wants, and see for the bigger picture. Feel the growth. Don't get into demonizing others, because when you're doing that, you are creating the demons. You are the creator of your physical world. Choose your interpretation wisely. Fly higher and embrace it all, because you are it all. You are everything and everyone you interact with. Remember that. Second clearing. Clearing distortions on the concept of darkness. So this is a total lunar eclipse, which makes it more potent. It's the third one in the Taurus Scorpio series, and it's the first one of South Node in Scorpio. And here I'm going to talk about two types of darkness. There is a type of darkness that is actually distorted light, that became stagnant, that identified with a particular role and over-densified, not letting change in. And there is another type of darkness that represents the void of creation, which is feminine purity. So to allow the transformation, you empty the vessel. And here we have Scorpio, which is a water sign, and there are 3 water signs. There is Pisces, which rules the oceans. There is Cancer, which rules the rivers. And there is Scorpio, that rules water that is closed, like a lake, for example. And lake waters renew very little. And while ocean water and river water are in constant renewal, because they move a lot, because In the oceans, there is a lot of interchange and rivers are constantly flowing. Lake waters take a more complex process to renew. They renew vertically more than horizontally. So it takes going deep and then evaporating. So are you allowing emptiness in your life? Because it's necessary for transformation. It's important to renew the deeper inner waters that became stagnant. For example, every menstruation is a void, and they're usually linked to the new moon. But because this is an eclipse of the moon, is also talking about these themes of clearing and renewing and going in. Because the more empty is a womb, the more fertile is. And the same goes for your matrix. Because matrix means womb. There are different matrices, and actually when I was talking about stages of awakening, and I show you the different circles, it's like a matrix inside a matrix inside a matrix. And we have the 3D collective matrix, and by doing these clearings we are unplugging a lot of that. And then there is your own matrix that created yourself. So like the planets, you have the choice to be going around someone else's matrix or reclaiming your own matrix and remembering that you are a creator too. That you don't have to live only in a reality that someone else created for you. That you can start creating your own. And this is the new earth. There's no one new earth. There is a new earth inside each one of us. And as we are remembering, we are getting back the power to create our own reality and incubating that new earth in each one of us until it's ready to become physical. So, in this process of respecting the sacredness of cycles, it's important not to be biased against emptying, because it's a key part of the process. And as we empty, we're going to see that which we are emptying outside, because it's what we are liberating. And when we see it, it's important to come back to that stillness of Taurus and not get into a fight with it, because it's our own residue. And so the best way to say goodbye to something you don't want to keep coming back is with a thank you, but a genuine one, because there is the gift in it. Because as I said in the beginning, realize there is value in the transformation it's bringing you. So this is a moment of emptying yourself to receive higher frequencies. And these higher frequencies are going to be received by the ones that are empty enough and ready to receive them and embody them. And by doing that, they are anchoring them inside the heart of the earth and making them available to everyone for when each one of us is ready. So if you want to be receiving them, make peace with emptying. Don't resist the process. Another idea that my guide sent me, and it's something I already did, especially with Scorpio moons, is to do a silence retreat, which I'll be doing this weekend until the eclipse. Simply letting know the people around you that you'll be in silence for a few days and being more inside, more in the cave, listening more in meditation and receiving. And this brings us to the third clearing distortions on resistance and surrendering. We have the moon at 25 degrees of Scorpio, which is the decan of Pisces, and it's squaring Saturn in trine to Neptune and Jupiter, and sextile Pluto. These are not personal planets, so it's important not to take emotions personally here, because we are going to be feeling different things that are in the collective, and it's important not to try to control. Mercury is going to be retrograding, reviewing things from the past, so we can also clear any anchors that we had there. And the rulers of the full moon in Scorpio are Pluto and Mars. And Mars is in Pisces, conjunct Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, and sextile the moon. And Mars here, which is a personal planet, is talking about surrendering. Mars is the active force. It talks about everything we do, our drive, our physical energy. And in Pisces is not very comfortable, because Pisces is not an active sign. It's the sign of surrendering. And this brings us to moments in our life when we couldn't do much. We could just accept what it was. And it reminds me of how pain and pleasure are so close sometimes. And this idea of orgasmic birth, that because of all the traumas that are in the collective or the family lineages around giving birth, There is this fear that makes us feel this unconscious resistance, and that's what causes the pain. So there's the question at the beginning again, are you holding on or letting go? And the same goes with period pains, or that is just a metaphor of the cycles I was talking about in the beginning. Because the same experience when we're holding can be very painful, but when we let go can bring a lot of pleasure. And it's because of a mental distortion. So come back to the heart and what is not mind. Surrender to the part of you that knows. Because often we try to hold things into our heads and understand them and know what they mean, what they are. And the mind has its limits. It forgot a lot. And it just doesn't fit in there. The nature of life doesn't fit into the mind. So don't try to grasp it, because you're only limiting it and not letting be what it is, which is infinite. It has no limits, it's limitless. So feel for it limitless in the heart. Don't try to understand it with the mind, and surrender to it. Don't try to control the process. Let it be. Don't get in the way of you being who you are, because that doesn't take any effort. There's nothing you have to do. There's nothing other than accepting it, and that's the power you have. That's something the mind can do. Stop resisting, letting things be what they are, because sooner or later they will be. And you can either live that process with pain or enjoy it. It's up to you. Even when in the surface doesn't look necessarily what you wanted or what you consider beautiful or enjoyable, because processes like menstruation or giving birth are messy. They are not supposed to look beautiful. And this reminds me of a concept we talked about in aesthetics in university, which is the sublime. And the sublime is not something that you can see in the form. Like in an artwork, that the form is not necessarily what you would consider beautiful. You can only experiment it. You can only feel it. It's not something you can see. It's something that you can feel. And it's often in the moments of the most fear or something that is terrible that you can find this other kind of beauty that cannot be contained in a form, that goes beyond what you can see or even touch. And this reminds me as well of something my guides have been insisting on lately, and is another distortion, which is confusing the real and the physical. We usually talk about reality as the physical reality, but that something is not physical doesn't mean it's not real. And that everything is an illusion, it doesn't mean it doesn't feel real. We chose this experience to feel real, but it cannot be contained in physical form. It's happening on multiple dimensions at the same time. And ultimately, the best things in life, you cannot touch them. They are not material. They can manifest and express physically, but essentially, they are not physical. So, are you surrendering to what life is bringing you now, or you're resisting it for some pretext that it doesn't fit a previous idea or prejudice you had, because it doesn't necessarily fit into a category or a limited role? The fourth clearing, clearing distortions on the concept of death. What you clear is the prima mater of the alchemy for new creation. And here I would like to share with you a quote from one of my favorite books, which is Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, that says, "We have erroneously been trained to accept the broken form of one of the most profound and basic aspects of the wild nature. We have been taught that death is always followed by more death. It is not so. Death is always in the process of incubating new life, even when one's existence has been cut down to the bones." And that brings us to the concept of love, because love is not necessarily being together with someone, and death that feels like a separation doesn't mean the end of love, as we often think. In my experience, death only makes love more unconditional, because only when you face your fears of losing the other, you can truly love. And this applies to any kind of relationship. To be able to have that touch, that Taurus desires to manifest things in the material, we need to be willing to let them go. Two sides of the same coin. Another quote from Clarissa is, "The twin of life is a force called death." So it just turns out that life and death are twins. And that's a transformation. Life was meant to bring you through death, and death through life. So take whatever life is giving you right now, even if it's not what society would consider beautiful or good, and realize about its potential for transformation and for new creation. See the treasure in it and surrender to the alchemy. It's not something you have to do, just receive, because it already is valuable. Dare to see it even when nobody else can, and connect to Scorpio in the highest frequency, which is the symbol of the eagle. While the Scorpio is on the surface of Earth and is taking things personally and getting revenge, the eagle simply flies higher without looking behind, because it knows the transformation already happened and she doesn't need to take revenge. Just appreciate, because of that experience she's able to fly higher now. And this connects me to the meditation I did this morning, where I asked Source, what would it take to remember, embody and integrate who I really am in every cell of my being? And she answered, this is what it takes. This is what it takes. So then I honor it, receive it, and accept it with gratitude. Remember, you are the creator. Choose your interpretation wisely. Thank you for your presence until here. I shared with the intention that it served you in the highest level. Hit the like button if you got value. I would love to hear your experience in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I recommend you to watch the video Stages of Awakening, and keep tuned for the next one, which will be the second part, where I'll talk about the next 3 stages of spiritual awakening. Looking forward to see you in the next video.